Alright gamers, today we're going to take a break from all the vintage games and we're going to talk about more current games, particularly Flashpoint, Fire Rescue. Let's check it out and see. Alright, so in Flashpoint what you're trying to do is you're trying to beat a fire that is either in one of these two maps. The board is of course split into two places. As you see here, there are places for doors to be set up, so the preset game you would set up these doors. You can open and close doors within the game. That's just one of the options, even though closing a door they say would be good for stopping a fire, but to be honest, we just open them up and leave them open. And I'll get to what that means in a minute. But first off, to start the pre-play, of course, you need to roll these two die. One's the black 8-sided die, one is a regular 6-sided die. As you see, they correspond with the numbers here on the board. So what I will do is I will roll the die. I have a black 8 and a red 2. So I look at 8, I look at 2. That's where my first fire happens. In fact, this is called the point of ignition here, POI. And I would put a little spot there. That will come into play later on. But this is going to be an explosion. It's going to go all different ways. And let's say I moved it here just for training purposes. I would throw one there, and these two are walls. So what I would do is I have to put some damage markers to these and show that they are damaged. Now if you have two damage markers in there, those are places that your firemen can go in and out. So again, if that was right here, they already have two damage markers here where this door is, that means it's just blown open. So there's an open way to get in and out there. But for right now, that would be where the damage die are. Now, as you do that, you would roll again a second time and put one there. So again, well, these are good examples here. Let's say it's 4 and 1. So 4, 1, right there again. I'm going to speed through this. Probably throw one there. That one's blown out. But anyway, that would be our second explosion. Now, to get the third one, you don't roll again. What you're going to do is you're going to turn both die upside down. So that's 7 and that's 6. And what this does is give you a little bit more fairness and a balanced fire here. So I have my black 7 and my red 6, so I'm blowing up right here. Now that's how the game would start, and I'm running out of damage markers. But anyway, so you would have this type of fire. Now what you're going to do is you're going to run around as these little firemen here. And if you have the Kickstarter edition, you got nicer, different sculpted firemen, which I'll get to and talk about later. But these are just the generic ones that come with the game. And what you're going to do is you're going to start off, you have an engine and an ambulance, and you're going to place them anywhere around the board. As you see, the blue spots are for the ambulance. Yellow spots here for the truck, a fire truck, which I'll get to in a minute, the significance of that. And you're going to have to rescue these types of people. There are victims that you're going to have to randomly throw in here at the beginning of the game and put one in. So that's a 1, 6, I'd put one there. Now you see they have these question marks on them. Why? Well, because some of these question marks are actually false alarms. They're blank, and you won't know because they're shuffled in with the rest of them. And so you start off with putting 3 on the board. Let's say I rolled 2 more die, and they were there and there. What if I rolled one on a fire? Well, you see this little, they have little arrows. I don't know if it may be too fine for you to see. I'm going to try to bring it in there a little bit closer and see if you can see some of those arrows. As you see, arrows pointing where, if there's a fire here, I would have to put the victim there. If there's a fire there, I'd put it there, and so on and so forth. You just keep going until you get away from flames. Now, if this is smoke, let's say it's also a smoke token, you can put them on smoke, and that's fine. But if ever that smoke turns to fire, then this person, if they're available, yep, that's the person, then they're dead. Now, every time you actually rescue someone, you have to rescue them through the the ambulance here. You can move the ambulance to any of these 4 areas. It costs 2 movement, which I'll get to the movement in a minute, but they cost 2 movement. You have to get them to the ambulance. Now, once you get them to the ambulance, you have to roll again at the end of your turn and put another victim on the board. There should always be 3 victims on the board at any time. All right, so how does regular movement go? Well, you get 4 actions, usually, per fireman, and those actions can include opening and closing doors, fighting fires here. You could throw it 1, that would turn it to smoke. 2, another action would get rid of it. So other actions you can take. Of course, movement is an action, so that would be an action. Of course, moving someone, that's actually 2 actions. You put them over them and you move them 2 actions. So if you only have 4, it's going to move very slower when you're trying to drag them out, because remember, you're dragging an extra body with you, so your movement weight is doubled. So let's say I started here and I wanted to take my turn. I could go 1, make it smoke, 2, 3, 4. Now, at the end of my turn, that would be turned back to fire because that's smoke there. But if I was to go 1, 2, 3, 4, flip this over, then in my turn, that would stay the same as smoke. But as my turn ends, I must roll these die and show where else fire should be placed, or smoke actually. So I have a black 7 right here and a red 4, so it would go right here as a smoke token. Now, what if there was already a smoke token there and I rolled that same exact number? Well, actually, that's a 5, so it would go right there. So I would have hit, actually, this place. Well, that smoke would have turned into fire if I hit it a second time. If I hit it a third time, someone hits it and it's still fire, well, that's an explosion, and you would treat it as other explosions would be, and there'd be 2 damage markers here and here. I should have gotten more damage markers out for this instructional. But that's how it would go, and of course, this guy, of course, in that case, would have been dead. Let's say when you're rolling for fire, and you hit around right here. Well, that would be a smoke token. Wouldn't be fire yet unless someone hit it twice. Or if there was fire next to it, then it would instantly turn to fire. Remember, if I hit at that spot and it was fire, that would cause an explosion. But let's say it was just smoke. Well, you could keep hitting around that area, smoke, 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 you know, and as long as no one hits in that area again, it's not fire. But once one of these turns fire, you know the rest of them turn fire because they're touching right next to fire. Now, of course, anything catty corner from it would not count. It has to be exactly around it. Same thing, same rule, by the way, for firefighters. I forgot to mention, firefighters cannot move catty corner. They can only move up or to the side. But that's kind of how fire goes. Now, when they die, they just go back to the ambulance and they can come back into the game. If you ever want to switch out your roles of firefighters, you can use the fire truck for that. Again, getting ahead of myself here. The only other thing when rolling for fire that you need to know is if you roll where this point of ignition was, the POI, then you have to roll again. Of course, that's an explosion, but then you would roll again and you would put up, let's see, 1 and 5. You would put another point of ignition right there, and of course that would be an explosion, so that person would die. You set up 1 there, and you'd set up 2 damage cubes there. I really should have gotten more damage cubes. But anyway, that's how it would work. So you can have up to, as you see over here, the game can hold about 6 POIs here. And the more you have on the board, the more you start with in the game. On a base game, they recommend just doing just 1. If you want to get better at it, you think you're hot snot, do 2, do 3. You can make this game as hard as you want. In fact, other things that make the game harder are these hazard tokens. What you can do, you roll the die and randomly place them across any of these places. And if they ever catch on fire, you know, if a fire token gets on them, then it counts as another explosion and sends flames out even further. And to carry these out would be, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. It counts double movement when you're trying to carry explosives out. So that can make the game even harder. They give you several choices to make this game as hard as you want. Now, trust me, this is a very difficult game to win at. Now, another action that I've been talking about is the fire truck. It takes 2 actions to move him to any one of these spaces on the board here. You move him anywhere. And why you would need the fire truck, well, 1, like I said, you can change your job role, which I'll get to the job roles again later on. But you could change your job role there. You could also shoot from the water cannon. Now, this is going to take all 4 of your action points to do so. But let's say this place is heavily populated with a lot of fire. And I see that there's some hazardous material there. Man, I need to put this thing out. Now, one of the things about shooting in an area, as you see, it's only in 4 sections. If you see the red dotted line that's divided the board into 4 places, the gun can only fire in its section. So I'm in this red section here. That's the only place I can fire. If I shoot here, it does not count. What I would do is I would roll the die, and I got a 6 and a 3. Now that splashed within my area, but let's say if that 3 was a 4, you know, and it would have hit outside of my area. What I would do is I'd take this red die and flip it over to the opposite end, and that would make it within my border line. Now this one, I kind of lucked out here, 6 and 3. I missed everything, but the splash over took out this one. Now what if I hit somewhere right here? Woo, that would be nice. it would take out, well, right here, let's say, it would take out all 3 of these because the splash over anything connected to it. So that would be really cool. So the cannon can be really powerful if the die roll your way. One other thing though, if I have a fireman in this room, I cannot fire the cannon. You cannot fire the cannon when you have your own men there. Now if there's victims in there, that's fine, you can fire. I guess we don't care if they drown, but with firemen, no, you cannot fire the cannon in a section where a fireman is. So if I had a fireman there, I couldn't fire that cannon. If he wasn't there, I could definitely fire in that place and then move to the next spot if I wanted to and load up and fire again. But that's just one of the advantages that you have in the game. But another action would be chopping through a wall. That would count as an action. You'd have to chop twice in there to shoot through and rescue someone, but that's another action you can do in the game. So the point of the game is to save 7 of your victims before either this building comes down, meaning you run out of damage blocks, or you lose so many victims to the fire that there's no way you could possibly win. Now here's some of the characters that you can play. First one is the imaging technician. As you see, he can identify, he can reveal one of these special counters to see if that is a person or a false alarm. The imaging technician can save you a lot of trouble when you travel all the way through the house just to get to a blank token. That sucks. But if you have the imaging technician, he can actually save you a lot of the time and effort there. The next one you have is the cast fighter. They only get 3 action points, but they get 3 free extinguish points. So they can extinguish fire for free 3 times, and that kind of balances out their limited movement there. This is a very popular one when we play. The paramedic basically can place a heal marker for 1 action point. They can heal the victim, and if that's the case, they heal them, then it doesn't cost 2 to move them out. It only costs 1 movement. So the paramedic is really awesome to have. Next up is the hazmat technician. Remember those hazmats I told you about? Well, this guy can actually dispose of them immediately on contact. All it takes is 2 action points. So it's kind of good to have a hazmat technician around, especially if you're playing with hazmats in the game. Next up is the rescue specialist. As you see, 4 action points, but 3 additional action points, which is really cool. Chop is just 1 action, which means to tear down a wall, you need to chop twice to tear through it. But with her, only 1 point, so she can chop through walls really quick, save people if they need to. She gets 3 free movement rolls, which is really nice. The only thing backfired about her is that it costs double to fight fire and smoke, extinguish fire and smoke. So not really a good firefighter, more of a rescue specialist, really fast player too. Next you have the generalist, which is a really fun one. All they have is just an extra action point. So they got 5 action points. They can do it all just about. Then you have the driver operator. This is a very, very popular card, 4 action points. But to fire the deck gun, instead of 4, it only costs 2. And 1 of those can be re-rolled. So if you just totally miss, like I did in the example there, you could actually have the driver operator and actually try to re-roll 1 or both of those die. And you have to accept the second roll no matter what. But that's the driver operator. Again, super powerful and popular card. Lastly is the fire captain. They do get their 4 action points, but also as you see, they get 2 free command points. They can disperse out to anyone on their turn. So if they feel every round that someone needs 1 more action point or 2 more action points to do 1 more thing, the fire captain can award them those points and push them a little bit further in the game. Now, as they're using action points, if you don't use all 4 of your action points, let's say I can only use 3 or for some reason I only wanted to use 2, you have these little extra point markers you can place on your card to show that you have extra bonus points left over. You can use them on your next turn or save them for a rainy day. You can't have more than 4, of course, saved up, and you can't save up any of your free stuff. So any of the other characters like the fire specialist and cast fighter, where they have those 3 or 3 bonus points there, you can't save up the bonus points. Those are use them or lose them. These regular action points are the ones where you can place the markers, and only as many as they have action points for. Oh, and one of the things I forgot to mention in Fire Rescue is they all come with these action cards. It kind of tells you what action points do what and what the movement is, and those are really nice to have, but to be honest, after the first 2 games, you won't even need those anymore because you've got it memorized up here. All right, so final thoughts on Flashpoint Fire Rescue. Well, A fireman game, interesting. You know, I've always been interested in this game ever since it came out a few years back, and I never went ahead and bit the bullet and bought it because every time I watched a review I was like thinking, is it that good? You know, and I was like, I don't know. It looks okay, but maybe it's not that fun. And then last year I got to play it at a friend's house who actually had the game. I said, dude, you have Fire Rescue. I've got to play this game. And so we played Flashpoint, and it was super fun. I was blown away. And I got lucky and I bought someone's Kickstarter set for really, really cheap on eBay. Got a great deal, got everything, and I'll do reviews for the expansions later on. But just looking at the base game, is this something that you would enjoy? I think so. It's a co-op game. Again, that's where everyone's winning or losing together. So if you don't like competitive games where people get too competitive, maybe it's fine to put them all on the same team and have them working together, and it's a nice, fun game. Now, to be honest, you can make this game super hard and never win it. In fact, there are some levels in the expansions I have not won yet. But it's a lot of fun. It is a super lot of fun fighting fires. Now, if you looked at this and you said, Matt, that looks a lot like Pandemic. Yes, I agree. It does look like Pandemic, but it is different than Pandemic. Of course, the theme is, of course, very different, but I think it's more random than Pandemic. And hear me out. In Pandemic, when you draw an epidemic card, you actually kind of have a good idea which cities are going to be hit again, right? It's whatever's already been hit before. So you know which countries may get it the worst when that deck's being reshuffled and they're, infecting new cities. But in Fire Rescue, you don't know where those dice are going to land. In fact, some of the craziest games we've had where we keep hitting the same impossible number, like Snake Eyes. The first time I said, oh, we'll never hit that POI again. And we hit it all throughout the game. It was ridiculous and we lost. So it just matters on the roll of the die there, and I like that kind of randomness to it. Now, yeah, you could say there's luck to it too, and there is a certain skill in playing this game. One of the technicalities, though, that I would change is the fact that they said you get to pick who you want to be. Now, that's nice, and a lot of people want to pick this person, but then you have the constant, oh, I want to be that guy. You were him last time. Let me be him. Or you have everyone picking that driver, because I'm not kidding, that is a super powerful card, and everyone picks him because he's so powerful, and you can really get ahead of the fire if you have that driver there. So what we've done, we've established some house rules that make it a little bit harder. We don't say it's random, we let you pick one, but if we're going to play multiple games, which this game allows you to play probably, 2 or 3 games per sit down, depending how much time you have. It's about an hour or less to play through. And what we do is on the first game, you get to pick who you want to be, but on the second game, you can't pick the same people again. You got to go with what's left over. And so it forces you to kind of balance your hand knowing you've got 2 fires to fight, because we'll flip the board over on the other side too. And so we have to determine which 4 we want to take the first time and which 4 we want to take the second time. And that adds a little bit more level of difficulty than just using the driver and just shooting out the flames, because usually if we have the driver, we're definitely going to win. Even at some of the hardest settings, we've still been able to get victory if you get the right people. Now, you can go in and change, and another kind of rule we made up is that if they do die in the fire, you can change and get someone else. But that's because I have all the expansions, and we have way more than those characters that you see, and so it allows them to pick a few more people who aren't in the base set. But you get to decide what you like is best. Is Flashpoint Fire Rescue worth your time? I would argue that it is. All right, gamers, that's all the time I have for today. Until next time, flame on, game on. Dang, Fire Rescue, flame game.